international marriage, the game begins. Mu Rong, can you stop being so self-righteous? Xia Emo called to Mu Run, who was turning around to leave, with undisguised anger clearly in his tone. This man was more suspicious than a woman. He doubted her in front of so many people and caused her so much embarrassment. She would be angry even if she stayed there any longer. It's really unbearable. Do you really think it has to be him? When Mu Rong heard this, he stopped and turned around, with obvious disdain in his eyes. If you can't even tolerate my self-righteousness, then you can leave. His tone was indifferent, and he even made a pleased gesture, because he believed that even if Xia Emo left angrily at this time, he would return to him soon. Even though he had no money or career, they had been together in the orphanage for 17 years, and their childhood sweethearts were talking about him and her. Of course, she couldn't live without him for 17 years. Because he loves her. He knew she loved him too. Because of his anger, Xia Emo's chest rose and fell greatly, and even his face changed, and a dark cloud appeared on that outstandingly beautiful face. This is not the first time, but Xia Emo tells himself in his heart that this is the last time. Xia Emo bit her lower lip, and it took a long time to reply to him unyieldingly. There will be no next time. After saying that, he turned around and left calmly. I'm just wondering, why doesn't my heart hurt? This happened countless times, but never once did I feel heartbroken. So, until the end of summer, I still don't know what heartache feels like. Could it be that others are lying when they say that falling out of love will cause heartache? It's not that others are lying, it's that she has never loved. If you don't love, you don't care. If you don't care, it will hurt. But when Mu Rong saw her leaving, he raised the corner of his mouth with a nice curve and said in a calm and confident tone, "You'll come back, I know it." Jiangsu, X City. At night, there is always a sense of joy, especially in such a hot summer. The harmony between man and nature, the most luxurious song and dance city in X City. At this time, Li Yinyan stood at the door, holding a cigarette between his fingers, taking a puff from time to time, as if waiting for something. Behind him, two teams of cold men in black lined up, standing quietly. For an overly dazzling man like Li Yinyan, even though he was dressed casually, there was still a hint of hostility emanating from him. It was immediately obvious that he was not casual or intrusive at all, which put an inexplicable pressure on people. There was a slight smile on her face that could be considered coquettish, but it was obviously a smile, but it made people feel cold in their hearts when they looked at it, and they didn't even dare to show their anger. The majestic formation of the two rows of men in black behind him made his aura even more powerful, as if he wanted to compete with this knight. Only he, Li Yinyan, was such a high-profile man, a man so powerful that he shocked the world. A cigarette had been extinguished, and a coldness flashed in Li Yinyan's eyes, obviously impatient. As soon as he struck a match and lit his second cigarette, Zhao Qian hurriedly walked out of the gate of the unity of man and nature, came to his side and bowed respectfully. "Master Yan, the arrangements have been made." Li Yinyan immediately put out the cigarette he had just lit and walked straight inside, followed silently by Zhao Qian. Li Yinyan's faint smile disappeared without knowing when, and his tone was indifferent and indifferent. "Don't make me wait so long next time." Zhao Qian only felt that his legs were weak. Li Yinyan always spoke so calmly and indifferently, even when he was killing people. God knows if he was angry because of the long wait. He had no choice but to nod his head and answer, "There will definitely be no next time." In fact, he waited not long at all, less than 5 minutes. If you're crazy, this book will be updated twice a day. In addition, this book also has a name called One Night of Love. If you see that this title has exactly the same content as The Young Man's Little Fugitive Wife and has the same author name, then it is definitely written by a madman. Asking for gold medals, asking for collections, asking for recommendations, asking for clicks, asking for comments, asking for red envelopes, asking for gifts, all kinds of requests, whatever you want, just throw it at me. Ass. At the same time, heaven and man are one. At the end of summer, I was in a bad mood, so I invited a rich friend to come here to sing. After drinking some wine, she went out to look for the bathroom. She was dizzy and searched for a long time. In the end, she found the bathroom, but she got lost. After spinning around for a long time, I saw an uncle coming out of a box and pushed the door open without thinking. But it was completely empty inside, not even a single person in sight. Realizing that I was on the wrong track, I was about to leave quickly. As soon as I opened the door, I saw a large group of people walking over. After looking at it, I saw that this was already the last private room. Do you want to come here? At the end of Xia, he was half sober and hurriedly looked for a place to hide. Just then, the door opened. Zhao Qian guided Li Yinyan with a sweet smile. Master Yan, are you satisfied with this place? It has been inspected inside and out. No one will disturb you. It is very quiet. Li Yinyan looked at it casually, walked to the sofa and sat down. His posture was extremely lazy, and there was a hint of wantonness in his laziness. He lit a cigarette again and held it between his fingertips and asked calmly, "Are they here?" The tone was calm, like a casual question, but it caused the temperature of the room to drop suddenly, giving people a strong sense of oppression. Zhao Qian answered cautiously, "Master Foam and Master Al have arrived." After saying that, he quietly withdrew, and then two people came in. Al was tall and burly, mighty and serious, and Lian Fingye was slender and well-proportioned. One look showed that Al was not Chinese. And although Lian Fingye was not as ostentatious as Li Yinyan, he was still a man who made people feel comfortable just looking at him. "Young Masterly, this time the United Nations is going to choose a wife for you. What are you going to do?" As soon as Al sat down, he took a sip of wine. His eyes rested on Li Yinyan's face, waiting for his answer. After a long time, Li Yinyan stubbed out the half-smoked cigarette in the ashtray, glanced at Al lazily, and said in a calm tone, "If he gives me a choice, do I have to marry him?" Arrogant, absolutely arrogant, extremely arrogant. The United Nations has never done this before, and it was the only one who made this exception for him, who makes him the leader of the World Federation of Underworlds and the person who has been at the top of the most wanted lists of counterterrorism organizations and Interpol in various countries for the past 3 years. Of course, there is an exception in China. For China, he is a national hero worthy of respect. He is panicked externally, but unable to protect himself internally. He is deeply protected domestically. Of course, the premise is that no one in the country offends him. If you offend him, there will be no good end. Several of his men have been at the top of the wanted list for a long time. The Al in front of him was the second most powerful man in the world. His words definitely carried weight, but he had already been on the wanted list for the 3rd and 7th year. Even so, he was extremely kind to Li Yinyan. It was precisely because Li Yinyan was tyrannical and cruel, and his actions were flamboyant and exaggerated, which caused headaches to those notorious anti-terrorist organizations, that the ridiculous thing about the United Nations choosing a wife for him was born. This can be regarded as an international marriage. I heard that the other party is a princess with the highest honor in the British royal family. Li Yinyan is probably the only one who dares to refuse even this. But if he didn't refuse, he wouldn't be him. Li Yinyan picked up the wine glass and held it in his mouth, but did not drink. "You are just afraid that I will cause another terrible storm. Am I that boring and unreasonable?" The red wine reflected his beautiful smile, which turned out to be more enchanting and evil. He is indeed an enchanting man, but his enchanting charm is so domineering and cold that no one dares to get too close to him. Al and Lian Fingye couldn't help but wipe their sweat. He was indeed neither boring nor unreasonable. He just killed people when he didn't like them. Asking for gold medals, asking for collections, asking for recommendations, asking for clicks, asking for comments, asking for red envelopes, asking for gifts, all kinds of requests, whatever you want, just throw it at me. Ass. Al and Lian Fingye couldn't help but wipe their sweat. He was indeed neither boring nor unreasonable. He just killed people when he didn't like them. Yan, what are we going to do? Just reject it? The only one who can call Li Yinyan such a name is Lian Fingye. This is not because of his high status in Taiangxiaoui, but because he is Chinese and Li Yinyan's right-hand man, so he is given this privilege. Since they have intentions, I would be sorry if I didn't play with them. Li Yinyan put down his wine glass. A cold flash appeared in his eyes, and he spoke slowly, after listening for so long. It's time to come out, right? As soon as Li Yinyan said this, Al and Lian Fingye looked at each other. What did he mean by saying this suddenly? Facing the two people's doubts, Li Yinyan smiled lazily, put one hand on the sofa, and said again very gently, "Don't want to come out yet." Don't want to come out yet? The tone was obviously very gentle, but it clearly contained an irresistible command. Xia Emo, who was hiding, immediately lost all his drunkenness and secretly cried out in his heart. Although people around her said she was stupid, but after listening to their conversation just now, they knew that this time she really hit a nail. He walked out bravely and smiled apologetically at Li Yinyan and the others. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. Xia Emo tried to explain, but when he saw the fierce look on Ael's face, he hurriedly waved his hands, shook his head, and backed away. I didn't hear anything, really. Some people believe that she is a ghost. Even Feng Yu was not surprised. Li Yinyan was always more than 10 times more alert than the average person, so it was no surprise to find her presence. But he couldn't imagine how Li Yinyan, who is known for his ruthlessness and revenge on the spot, would punish this woman. On the contrary, from the time he stood up in late summer until now, Li Yinyan seemed to regard her as nothing, with a faint smile on his lips and slowly sipping red wine, without even the slightest sign of anger. Lian Fingye knew that Li Yinyan was in the most danger at this moment. Not angry means that he is already very angry. Not getting angry means that he is already furious. Of course, Al knew that, so he took out his gun and pointed it at Xia Emo. Xia Emo's mind immediately went blank, and he stared straight at the black muzzle of the gun. It took him 5 seconds to realize that he was afraid. His face turned pale with fright, and he opened his mouth to call for help. Wait. Li Yinyan's still gentle voice sounded in time, which not only stopped Ael's movements, but also made Xia Emo swallow the words he was about to call for help alive. With tears in his eyes, he looked at this man who exuded a lazy and unrestrained, evil and coquettish aura. His face was absolutely beautiful, but it made people tremble in their hearts. Especially his smile, which was warm yet cold, gentle yet full of murderous intent, gentle yet full of hostility. It was simply terrifying. Li Yinyan glanced at Xia Emo unintentionally, causing her to look away involuntarily, never daring to look at him again. Li Yinyan took out his phone and dialed. Zhao Qian, come in. As soon as he put down the phone, Zhao Qian pushed the door open and walked in. As soon as he entered the door, he saw Xia Emo, who was standing stiffly on one side, wanting to cry, but not daring to cry. Zhao Qian was stunned for a moment, then realized what was going on. His expression changed drastically, his heart sank, his legs began to tremble involuntarily, and his eyes trembled as he looked at Li Yinyan. Zhao Qian, it didn't do enough self-study exams. Li Yinyan said, lit a cigarette, stood up and came to Zhao Qian's side. Seeing Li Yinyan looking at him with a smile on his face, Zhao Qian felt his whole body go limp. He knelt down on the ground and kowtowed for mercy. Master Yan, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me this time. Asking for gold medals, asking for collections, asking for recommendations, asking for clicks, asking for comments, asking for red envelopes, asking for gifts, all kinds of requests. Whatever you want, just throw it at me. Ass. Seeing Li Yinyan looking at him with a smile on his face, Zhao Qian felt his whole body go limp. He knelt down on the ground and kowtowed for mercy. Master Yan, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me this time. Li Yinyan took a deep breath from the cigarette and exhaled a cloud of smoke. After Zhao Qian kowtowed for more than a dozen times, he said leisurely, If I don't kill you, How can you spare your life? Lien Fingye and Al were startled. Li Yinyan would really let Zhao Qian go. It seemed that this was not his style of doing things. However, just when Zhao Qian thought he had received a letter of pardon, Li Yinyan knocked him to the bottom with a simple sentence. I'm just treating your eyes. As soon as he finished speaking, the cigarette in his hand burned directly on Zhao Qian's left eye. The pain caused him to scream, cover his eyes, and roll on the ground. He didn't forget to cry and beg for mercy. Lien Fingye suddenly realized that this was Li Yinyan's usual style, first making the opponent relax their vigilance, and then delivering a fatal blow, making the opponent unable to defend himself. Li Yinyan threw away the cigarette butt and glanced at Zhao Qian calmly. There was no sign that he was angry at all, and it was hard to imagine that such a gentle-looking man would do what he did just now. Actually, I've always been very generous, but you just want to make trouble with this bone. Al and even Feng Yi wanted to laugh when they said this. If Li Yinyan was considered generous, then there would be no one in this world who liked to be careless. However, one thing that is unquestionable is that Li Yinyan is indeed more tolerant at home than with outsiders. It's just that this time the matter involved too much, so he took action so directly. Zhao Qian finally endured the excruciating pain and stopped struggling. Li Yinyan immediately shouted, "Get out." Zhao Qian didn't dare to neglect and ran out rolling and crawling and couldn't help but thank Li Yinyan for not killing him directly. After Zhao Qian left, the air in the entire room suddenly condensed and dropped to freezing point. Xia Emo suddenly felt a sense of danger. At the moment when Li Yinyan made a move, she finally couldn't restrain herself from screaming. Devil, this man is definitely a devil. He actually puts a cigarette butt directly into someone's eyes. Is this something a normal person can do? Now that Zhao Qian is gone, what about you? What methods would he use to punish himself for eavesdropping on their conversation just now? Sure enough, Li Yinyan set his sights on late summer. That look in his eyes was gentle and nonviolent, calm and unruffled, but it was enough to make her feel scared. That's a look that could kill. Li Yinyan walked into Xia Emo with a smile. She wanted to retreat, but her legs refused to obey her, and she couldn't lift her at all. You didn't hear anything, right? Li Yinyan asked with a smile. He remembered what Xia Emo said just now. Xia Emo wanted to nod, but actually shook her head. She heard everything. Shake your head? That means you heard it. Li Yinyan tilted his head. His tone was so gentle, but it was dangerously suffocating. Al and Lien Fingye watched quietly. They wanted to see how Li Yinyan punished this poor daredevil. Xia Emo held his breath and did not dare to speak. His big eyes stared at Li Yinyan, getting closer and closer with fear. Suddenly seeing him raise his hand, Xia Emo screamed in fright, thinking that Li Yinyan was going to hit her or kill her with a gun. Surprisingly, Li Yinyan just put his palm on her delicate shoulder, still smiling, and asked her gently, "Then how much did you hear?" Asking for gold medals, asking for collections, asking for recommendations, asking for clicks, asking for comments, asking for red envelopes, asking for gifts, all kinds of requests, whatever you want, just throw it at me. Ass. Surprisingly, Li Yinyan just put his palm on her delicate shoulder, still smiling, and asked her gently, "Then how much did you hear?" This was definitely teasing. He had obviously spotted her when he entered the house, and now he was asking, what else could it be besides teasing? At the end of the summer, I just felt like crying, but no tears. This man was so inhumane. Pian Bianzue didn't know how to answer, so he was prepared to stay silent. Unexpectedly, the hand on her shoulder suddenly exerted force, causing her shoulder bones to make a slight crunching sound. Xia Emo screamed in pain, and his whole body shrank in spasm due to pain. He quickly cried out, I heard everything." Li Yinyan relaxed his palms and then asked, "Oh, I heard them all. What should I do?" The tone was soft and slow, but Xiaomo's face instantly turned pale. Was he talking about how to deal with her? In fact, Li Yinyan had a gentle expression from beginning to end, and he looked very compassionate, including when he exerted force on his palms. There was a charming smile on his face. Finally, Al couldn't stand it any longer and reminded him aloud, "Young Masterly, just kill her. Instead of wasting time with her here, you should think about how to play with the people from the United Nations." In Ael's opinion, women can either be killed or enjoyed, and even torture is not like this. Li Yinyan turned his head slightly and cast his gaze on Lien Fengye, who had been silent. He asked, "A foam, what do you think?" Lien Fengye paused, flicked the cigarette ashes, and replied calmly, since she heard something she shouldn't have heard, then just kill her. Li Yinyan withdrew his eyes with satisfaction, turned his head, and looked pityingly at Xiao Emo, who was extremely frightened but did not dare to move. His thin lips moved slightly. "They all asked me to kill you." As he spoke, his hand gradually moved to Xiao Mobo's neck, and a chill slowly came to Xiao Mo's heart. "Dead." However, Li Yinyan did not pinch her neck immediately, but lifted her chin with his thumb. Looking at Xiao Emo, who was already trembling all over, he sighed after a long time. "Actually, you are quite good-looking." It was a sentence that had nothing to do with the previous one. Xiao Emo swallowed her saliva. Her excessive fear had made her completely forget to think about everything. "Since you heard everything, then?" He must have said he wanted her to die. Even Fengyi, Al, and Xiao Emo also think so. But that's not the case. "Then cooperate with me in a play. If you don't perform well, you will understand the consequences, even if I don't tell you." Li Yinyan said, and actually let go of Xiao Emo. This was undoubtedly an anecdote for Lien Fengye and Al. After a near miss, Xiao Emo took a deep breath, but his whole body was still trembling. She didn't dare to imagine what kind of scene Xiang Xiang and Li Yinyan would ask her to act in, but she was certain that she was definitely not acting material, and she might get cheated on before the show even started. Therefore, she wanted to say no or change the conditions within her ability. Li Yinyan was so smart, he seemed to know what she was going to say and reminded her directly before she could say anything. "If you want to save your life, don't say the word no. Also, I don't like hearing the word no the most. Do you understand?" Xiao Emo shut up aggrievedly, tears welling up in her eyes again. When she met such a strong person, she was weak and had no right to resist. Li Yinyan did not stop there, but looked back at her and asked again with a soft smile, Did you hear what I said?" Asking for gold medals, asking for collections, asking for recommendations, asking for clicks, asking for comments, asking for red envelopes, asking for gifts, all kinds of requests, whatever you want, just throw it at me. Ass. Li Yinyan did not stop there, but looked back at her and asked again with a soft smile, Did you hear what I said?" At the end, he kindly added, "If you don't understand, I can explain it to you." "I heard it and understood it," Xiao Emo said hurriedly. No matter how stupid she was, she knew how dangerous Li Yinyan's words were. "That's good. From now on, you don't have to go back. You will stay with me for 1 year." After a pause, he said, "After 1 year, when the play is over, you can choose to leave. At that time, we will not owe each other anything." Such words were definitely unexpected and shocking to Xiao Emo, so she overheard a few of their words and owed him something. But when he opened his mouth to say something, he immediately swallowed back what he wanted to say when he saw Li Yinyan smile. If those words were spoken, he would definitely be seeking death. Because you can negotiate terms with people like Li Yinyan. "Then I'll go back and prepare first and tell my friends, is it okay? Is it okay?" He softened his tone completely, which made Li Yinyan very satisfied. But being satisfied doesn't mean he will agree. I saw him turning around and walking towards where he was sitting. As he walked, he said casually, "You don't need to prepare anything. I will send someone to talk to your family." Xiao Emo lowered his head in grievance and whispered, "I have no family, only a few friends. Please tell them." The calm response, without any wavering in his tone, made Li Yinyan frown slightly. In this way, Xia Emo was inexplicably forced to stay with Li Yinyan. Rather than staying with him, it was more like being imprisoned by him and restricting all movements. Living in the villa arranged by him, all the food, clothing, housing, and transportation were specially arranged. Since that day when heaven and man became one, she has never seen Li Yinyan as if he never existed at all, leaving her with only lingering fear. As for what kind of scene she was asked to act in, she was even more confused. Until half a month later, Li Yinyan suddenly appeared in Xia Emo's sight with several people. Faced with his same laziness and smile as before, Xia Emo didn't dare to say any more words or even look at her again. It's been half a month, even though it took him so long to show up. The fear that day was still stirred up again when Li Yinyan showed up. Li Yinyan crossed over to the end of summer and walked into the room. After looking around for a week, he said calmly, "It seems that you are quite used to living here." Xia Emo didn't know how to answer, so he lowered his head and said nothing. But he didn't want to make Li Yinyan a little unhappy. He didn't like that others didn't respond to his words. It felt like being ignored, or that others didn't hear his words at all and didn't take them seriously. So he slowly turned to Xia Emo, took his hand out of his trouser pocket, clamped her chin forcefully, and raised it so that she could look at him. Fear once again filled my heart, and I had to look into his smiling eyes, and my body began to tremble. I don't like talking to myself. What does this mean? Just as Xia Emo was thinking about the meaning of these words, Li Yinyan said calmly again, "So, next time I speak, I must respond with my voice, even if it is just one word, you know?" The words floated into Xia Emo's ears, which turned out to be an irresistible command, and he nodded fiercely immediately. Li Yinyan frowned as the single word came out, which was a sign of displeasure. Asking for gold medals, asking for collections, asking for recommendations, asking for clicks, asking for comments, asking for red envelopes, asking for gifts, all kinds of requests, whatever you want, just throw it at me. Ass. Li Yinyan frowned as the single word came out, which was a sign of displeasure. Realizing the problem, Xia Emo endured the pain in his jaw, nodded continuously, and responded, "Well, I understand." That's good. After hearing Xia Emo's response, Li Yinyan let go of his hand with satisfaction and ordered the people at the door, "Get Mrs. Li dressed up well and don't make any mistakes." "Yes, Master Yen." When the person at the door came in, Li Yinyan put his hands in his trouser pockets and walked out coolly. At the end of Xia, because his heart was still occupied by fear, he didn't notice what Li Yinyan just said. "Mrs. Li, I was pushed back and forth by 5 or 6 people, trying on clothes, putting on makeup, and fixing my hair. It took a full 2 hours to get it done." Looking at his completely changed self in the mirror, Xia Emo unconsciously showed a bright smile. "Is that person in the mirror yourself? The light makeup is not exaggerated, not impetuous, and shows nobility. Her long hair is completely curled, fluffy and slightly scattered, which is both casual and elegant. A one-shoulder-length blue dress makes her figure very streamlined. The whole person looks noble, beautiful, and generous, but also has aura. It is not an exaggeration to describe him as beautiful." Haha. Xia Emo never thought that she would be so beautiful. She turned around in the mirror and laughed out loud. "It seems that you are very satisfied." Li Yinyan's calm, yet gentle voice sounded at the door, making the originally dynamic Xia Emo immediately quiet down. Thinking of the reminder just now, Xia Emo immediately cleared his throat and whispered, "This is the first time to dress up like this, so..." She stopped here. She really didn't know what to say. "So you never thought you would be so beautiful?" Li Yinyan walked in with graceful steps and helped her speak out, but in a questioning tone. In a blink of an eye, he had arrived beside Xia Emo, his eyes always falling on Xia Emo. Because the end of summer at this time is indeed beautiful. "Master Yen, your mission is completed. Go down." Li Yinyan waved to them all to go down. So, only Li Yinyan and Xia Emo were left in the whole room. Seeing Li Yinyan staring at him, Xia Emo finally remembered that he hadn't answered what he had just said, so he nodded lightly and said, in a low voice. As long as you cooperate, you can be so beautiful every day in the next year. Li Yinyan smiled slightly at the corner of his mouth and raised his eyebrows, charming and elegant, and then he naturally put his hand on Xia Mo's shoulder. The moment he put his hand on it, he clearly felt Xia Mo's body tremble. She is afraid. Let's go. You are Mrs. Li today. With that, he led Xia Mo towards the door. Xia Mo didn't react for a moment, so he let Li Yinyan lead him and walked side by side with him. After walking for several steps, a flash of consciousness occurred in his mind. As if he thought of something, he suddenly stopped and turned to look at Li Yinyan, who had a calm expression on his face. What did he just say, Mrs. Li? Who was he talking about? Feeling the stiffness in her movements, Li Yinyan also stopped and turned around to find Xia Emo looking at him. Li Yinyan sighed secretly in his heart. He had already said Mrs. Li twice. He was also wondering why Xia Emo was so calm. It turned out that she only realized it now. Asking for gold medals, asking for collections, asking for recommendations, asking for clicks, asking for comments, asking for red envelopes, asking for gifts, all kinds of requests. Whatever you want, just throw it at me. Li Yinyan sighed secretly in his heart. He had already said Mrs. Li twice. He was also wondering why Xia Emo was so calm. It turned out that she only realized it now. This is the nature of the end of summer. IQ is not low, but reaction is a little slow. Certain things are always an afterthought. Especially in relationships, slow response is definitely not a one-shot or a two-shot thing. When Mu Rong said he liked her, she struggled with the deeper meaning of the word, like for almost a month. Therefore, people who know her say she is stupid. In fact, she is not stupid at all. She just reacts a little slowly to a few things. When you think about it, she is definitely incredibly smart. Mrs. Li, what do you mean? Xia Mo's tone was dull and confused, and she was very out of state. As soon as she asked this question, Xia Emo realized her mistake. She didn't know whether Li Yinyan liked others asking him questions, so she asked so rashly. What if he got angry? Surprisingly, facing her almost dull expression, Li Yinyan smiled even more wildly and nodded. Yes, Mrs. Li. Then he explained, didn't I say that if you cooperate with me in acting, you will play Mrs. Li, my fiancée? Mrs. Li, your fiancé. From Xiaming's point of view, this is undoubtedly a difficult task. Playing his fiancé, does that mean having to stay close to him a lot of time? God, staying with this dangerous demon would be murder for Xiaming. She was more than just afraid of him. Seeing Xia Mo's shoulders shaking more and more, Li Yinyan sneered in his heart. He was really a slow, responsive guy. Otherwise, you want to play my wife? He asked back, which was regarded as an answer to Xia Mo's words. When Xia Mo shook her head, he comforted her gently. Don't be so nervous. It's just acting. It's very simple. Li Yinyan's tone was unusually gentle, and he patted her shoulder lightly. Xia Emo knew that there was no room for her to speak. Since I can't refuse, I can only bite the bullet and comfort myself secretly. If I persist for 1 year, I will be free after 1 year. Thinking about it, but feeling uneasy, he met Li Yinyan's eyes again and asked cautiously, you really won't embarrass me if you let me go after 1 year? Li Yinyan didn't expect that Xia Emo would ask this question, so he turned his head and returned to his usual smiling face. He said, you are the first woman to negotiate terms with me. Xia Mo's heart suddenly sank, but she heard him say again, but I said you can choose to leave after 1 year. Of course you won't forget it. Then thank you. I couldn't find the words to respond, so I could only say thank you. Remember to act more realistically. I will be angry if you can't fool people. Li Yinyan reminded kindly. She originally had to act hard, but Xia Emo never expected that she would face characters she had never dreamed of, which also made her completely dumbfounded and completely confused. On the Great Wall, Mu Jun was leaning against the stone wall, looking a little tired and weak. I don't know how much time passed, but I raised my hand to see the photo in my hand, and my eyes were a little blurry. The photo shows a smiling face in late summer. After looking at the photo for a long time, I murmured to myself, "Xiaoma, where have you been?" Mu Rong didn't expect that at the end of the summer, she said to him, "This is the last time." And then she really disappeared. Asking for gold medals, asking for collections, asking for recommendations, asking for clicks, asking for comments, asking for red envelopes, asking for gifts, all kinds of requests. Whatever you want, just throw it at me. Ass. Mu Rong didn't expect that at the end of the summer. She said to him, "This is the last time," and then she really disappeared. He searched all the places he frequented in late summer in X City, but she was still nowhere to be seen, and he couldn't even get through on the phone. Later I remembered what Xia Imo said, if she breaks her heart one day and disappears, she must be on the Great Wall.